After healing from my first wife's cheating, I never imagined my second marriage would collapse when I caught Sandy passionately kissing her ex. One thing I've learned in life is that trust is fragile. It took me 2 failed marriages to figure that out. You give everything to someone, your love, your time, your support, and yet somehow, that can still lead to contempt. Looking back, maybe I should have seen the signs earlier with Sandy, my second wife, but when you in love, you want to believe the best about someone, even when the little cracks start to show. Sandy and I met after coming out of messy relationships. She'd spent 3 years with her ex-boyfriend Billy, who left her for someone younger. She came out of that relationship broken, with her confidence shattered. Me, I was healing from my own wounds. My first wife, Charlotte, cheated on me with multiple men, and it took me a year to uncover the truth. That experience wrecked me, but it also taught me one thing. I would never allow myself to be in that position again. I swore I'd be smarter, stronger, more guarded. When Sandy and I started dating, it felt like a fresh start for both of us. I helped her rebuild her self-esteem. I encouraged her to go to the gym, to take care of herself, to feel beautiful again. She embraced that encouragement, transforming herself into a confident, radiant woman. She would tell me daily how lucky she was to have found me, and honestly, I felt the same way. It seemed like we were a team, helping each other heal from the pain of our past. Still, there was always this shadow, Billy. He wasn't part of our lives directly, but he was there in the background of her stories, in the way her voice shifted when his name came up. She assured me she was over him, and I believed her. I wanted to believe her. We promised each other complete honesty and loyalty, and I trusted her, even with the baggage we both carried. We had a good life together, or at least that's what I thought for 6 years. I believed we were happy. We celebrated milestones, shared laughter, and built what felt like a solid foundation. Sure, there were small things here and there that nagged at me, her mood sometimes when she was lost in thought, her occasional defensiveness when I asked about her day, but I brushed them off. No relationship is perfect, right? She was attentive, affectionate, and made an effort to show me she cared. I thought we had something real, something lasting. But trust is a funny thing. You can have it for years, and then suddenly, in one moment, it shatters. And when it does, all the memories, the good times, they feel like a lie. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart, it rewrites your entire history. It all started with something so small, so seemingly insignificant, that I almost let it slide. Sandy and I had just celebrated our 6th wedding anniversary. We had a nice dinner, exchanged gifts, and talked about our plans for the future. It felt good, normal. But then, just a week later, things began to feel off. I noticed it one morning when she walked into the kitchen wearing a stunning red dress. It wasn't just the dress, it was the way she carried herself. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, and she had on a pair of high heels that I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't a special occasion, just a regular weekday. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying she wanted to feel good about herself. It sounded reasonable enough, but something didn't sit right with me. Later that day, while I was at work, I had a little downtime. I often pull up the surveillance feed at home during lunch, just to check in, mostly to see our dog, Bran, lounging around the house. It's a harmless habit, something I do when I need a mental break. That day, when I opened the app, there was Sandy, pacing in the living room, still in that red dress. She looked restless, like she was waiting for something or someone. Then, just like that, she grabbed her purse and left. I called her shortly after. "Hey, love," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "What's the plan for today? Tennis as usual?" Her response was casual, almost dismissive. She told me her opponent had hurt her ankle, so she didn't have anything planned, maybe just a quick trip to the gym. She even added a soft "I miss you," which was typical of her, but there was something missing in her tone, something I couldn't put my finger on. When we hung up, I stared at my phone for a long moment. Something wasn't adding up. She had told me she wasn't doing much, but she looked more dressed up than I'd seen her in years. That's when I remembered the GPS tracker I had installed on her car years ago, not out of mistrust, but for safety. Now, for the first time, I found myself using it for a very different reason. I opened the app and watched the little dot move. It wasn't heading to the gym or any place she usually went. Instead, it was making its way downtown. My office wasn't far from there, so I grabbed my keys and followed. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd catch her running errands or meeting a friend, but deep down, I already knew I wouldn't like what I was about to find. When I caught up to her car, she had just parked in a garage near one of the nice restaurants in the city. I parked a few blocks away and walked to the entrance, trying to stay calm, trying to convince myself there was an innocent explanation. But then I saw her. Sandy, my wife, standing on the sidewalk in that red dress, her heels clicking against the pavement as she walked toward the restaurant. She was smiling, radiating confidence. And then I saw him. A man stepped out of a car in front of the restaurant, and her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. They greeted each other with a kiss on the lips. My stomach churned, and my chest felt like it was on fire. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was Billy, her ex, the one she had sworn she'd never speak to again. I stayed where I was, hidden by the crowd, as I watched them walk into the restaurant hand in hand. My mind raced, and my emotions swung between disbelief and anger. I wanted to storm in and confront her right then and there, but something held me back. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording. I didn't know why, I just needed proof. Proof for myself, for her, for anyone who might doubt me later. At that moment, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew one thing for sure: something had changed between us, something I couldn't ignore. Standing outside the restaurant, I felt like my body had been set on fire. The air seemed heavier, and every breath felt like a struggle. I couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. My wife, the woman I had spent 6 years building a life with, had kissed another man. And not just any man, Billy, the guy who left her broken before we met. My first instinct was to charge in, but something stopped me. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was the need for clarity. Instead, I stayed outside, watching and recording through the window. They walked in together, arm in arm, her head resting lightly on his shoulder as they waited at the hostess stand. She was laughing at something he said, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in years. My stomach twisted. I didn't just feel betrayed, I felt humiliated. I thought about the countless times she told me I was her one and only, that I'd saved her from her past, and how lucky she was to have me. It all felt hollow now, like a script she'd memorized to keep me happy while living a double life. As they were led to their table, I crossed the street to get a closer view through the window. They sat close, not across from each other, but side by side, their bodies turned inward like they couldn't get enough of each other's presence. His hand rested on her knee under the table, and she didn't pull away. It was intimate, comfortable. My hands shook as I held up my phone to record. Then it happened. He leaned in, and she didn't hesitate. Their lips met in a kiss that wasn't friendly or casual, it was passionate. I could see her arms wrap around his neck, pulling him closer. My heart felt like it shattered into a million pieces, and anger quickly took its place. I snapped photo after photo, then switched to video, capturing every painful second of their public display of affection. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion, knowing there's nothing you can do to stop it. The world around me seemed to blur. The sounds of the city, the footsteps of passers-by, the hum of traffic, it all faded into the background. All I could focus on was her, my wife, betraying me in the most blatant way possible. As I stood there filming, the truth hit me like a brick. This wasn't just a momentary lapse of judgment. She had planned this. The dress, the heels, the makeup. She had dressed up for him in a way she hadn't done for me in years. She wanted him to see her at her best, to remind him of what he had lost, and in doing so, she had tossed aside every promise we had made to each other, every ounce of trust we had built. I stayed outside that restaurant for what felt like an eternity, documenting everything. Part of me thought, maybe I'm overreacting, maybe there's an innocent explanation. But then I remembered her lies that morning, the way she avoided saying I love you on the phone. She had been careful, calculated even, to keep this hidden from me. And for what? A man who had left her years ago, who had made her feel worthless. And now, suddenly, he was worth risking everything we had. When they finally left the restaurant, I followed at a distance. I didn't want to confront her, not yet. I wanted her to dig her own grave, to tell me more lies before I laid everything out in front of her. As they walked to his car, I saw them embrace one last time, another kiss, this one even deeper than the first. My heart sank further, but my resolve hardened. I knew there was no coming back from this. Whatever love I had for her was tangled now with anger and disappointment. That night, I went back to my office, sitting at my desk in silence, replaying the footage over and over. The images of her with him burned into my mind, each one more painful than the last. By the time I left for home, I'd already made my decision. This wasn't something I could forgive. Sandy had crossed a line, and there was no erasing what she'd done. When I walked into the house that evening, it was almost surreal. Everything looked just as it always did. The warm lights in the kitchen, the smell of dinner wafting through the air, and Sandy humming softly as she moved about. She greeted me with a big smile, dressed in a silky, transparent robe that left little to the imagination. It was as if she had no clue that her world was about to come crashing down. For a split second, I questioned myself. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe there was an explanation. But then the images of her kissing Billy flashed through my mind, and all my doubts evaporated. She kissed me as I walked in, a long, deliberate kiss. "I missed you today," she said, her voice dripping with affection. I forced myself to respond with a weak smile, though I could feel the anger bubbling just below the surface. She led me to the dining table, which she had set beautifully with candles and wine. The whole scene screamed of someone trying too hard, like she was overcompensating for something. I played along for now. The conversation started innocently enough. She asked about my day, and I kept my responses short, trying to mask the tension that was building inside me. She noticed, of course. "Are you okay?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "You seem off." I poured myself a generous glass of whiskey and leaned back in my chair, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's been a rough day," I said, "but we'll talk about it later. Let's enjoy dinner." Her smile returned, and we ate in silence for a few minutes. I could feel her eyes on me, studying my face, trying to gauge what was going on in my head. She must have known something was wrong, but she didn't push. Maybe she thought her charm would smooth things over, just like it always had, but this time, it wouldn't. When the meal was finished, I pushed my plate aside and looked her straight in the eye. "So, how was your day?" I asked, my tone calm, almost casual. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough to confirm what I already knew. "It was fine," she said, her voice light. "I went to the gym for a bit, then came home to cook for you." I nodded, letting her words sink in. "And that's it? Nothing else?" Her smile faltered. "No, nothing else. Why?" I took a long sip of my drink, then placed the glass down with deliberate care. "Sandy," I said, my voice steady but firm, "let's not play games. I'm going to ask you this once, and I want the truth. Where were you today?" Her eyes widened slightly, and she looked down at her hands. "What do you mean?" "I just told you. I was at the gym." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, opening the gallery. "Really? Because this is what I saw today." I turned the screen toward her, showing her the picture of her and Billy kissing outside the restaurant. Her face went pale. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just stared at the screen as if it might somehow erase the image. Then she laughed nervously. "Ryan, it's not what it looks like. He's just a friend. We ran into each other by chance. It was nothing." I shook my head, feeling my composure slipping. "Nothing, Sandy? You kissed him. You dressed up for him. You lied to me this morning about your plans. Don't insult my intelligence by calling this nothing." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Ryan, please let me explain. I wasn't thinking." I just wanted closure. Seeing him again brought up old feelings, but it didn't mean anything, I swear. I laughed bitterly. "Closure? Is that what you call kissing him in public, holding his hand and spending the entire day with him? Was it closure when you took off your wedding ring, or when you sent him those texts?" Her mouth opened to protest, but no words came out. She knew she was caught, and there was no talking her way out of it this time. "I made a mistake," she whispered, "a stupid, terrible mistake. But it was just one day, Ryan. One stupid day. Please don't let this ruin everything we've built." I stood up, staring down at her, my heart pounding with a mix of rage and heartbreak. "Sandy, this wasn't just one day. It was lies, deception, and a complete lack of respect for me and our marriage. And I can't live like this anymore." Her tears flowed freely now, but I didn't care. For the first time, I felt like I had taken back control of my life. The damage was done, and there was no going back. After Sandy's flood of excuses and pleas, I sat there in silence, letting her words bounce off me like meaningless echoes. She kept saying it was a mistake, a lapse in judgment, that she still loved me. But love? Was this her version of love? Lies, betrayal, and sneaking around behind my back? I had made a promise to myself after my first marriage I would never tolerate this kind of disrespect again, and yet here I was, living the same nightmare. "Ryan, please, you have to understand," she said, her voice trembling as fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "It was just one lunch. I wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at her, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts, all of them heavy with anger and disappointment. I could barely look at her without seeing the images of her and Billy together, her dressed to impress, kissing him, holding him. How could she sit and expect me to believe this was just a mistake? Mistakes don't come with carefully chosen dresses, styled hair, and makeup that you haven't worn in years. Mistakes don't involve taking off your wedding ring. You weren't thinking clearly, I finally said, my voice calm but cold. Tell me, Sandy, how much planning did it take to not think clearly? How long did you stand in front of the mirror putting on that dress, those heels, that lipstick? Did you feel guilty when you took off your ring, or did that part not matter? She opened her mouth to speak but stopped, her hands trembling as she wiped her tears. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she stammered. It was just closure. I wanted to show him I'm better now, that I've moved on. It didn't mean anything. I shook my head, standing up from the table. Closure? You call this closure, Sandy? What you did today wasn't closure, it was betrayal. And it didn't stop with lunch, did it? Let me see your phone. Her eyes darted to the counter where her phone was charging. For a moment, she just stared at it, like she was trying to decide whether she could talk her way out of this. Ryan, you don't need to see that. It's private. I laughed bitterly. Private? After what you've done today, you think you're entitled to privacy? If it's really as innocent as you say, show me your phone. She hesitated, her body language screaming guilt. When she finally stood to grab it, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely unlock the screen. She handed it to me, her head down, her voice barely audible. Please don't let this destroy us. I scrolled through her messages, my chest tightening with every word. There they were, the texts to Billy. They weren't just friendly, nostalgic exchanges. They were filled with longing, flirtation, and confessions. She had told him she missed him, that she still loved him. There was even a picture, a suggestive one, sent with the caption, "My kitten can't wait." The final blow was a message from Billy, promising they would be one again soon. I closed the phone and placed it on the table between us. For a moment, neither of us said anything. She sat there, her head in her hands, sobbing softly. I stared at her, feeling a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching this scene unfold from outside my own body. Part of me wanted to scream, to break something, to make her feel a fraction of the pain she'd caused me. But instead, I took a deep breath and said, "It's over." Her head shot up, her eyes wide with panic. Ryan, no, please. It was stupid. I was stupid. It didn't mean anything. I can fix this. Just give me a chance. I shook my head. A chance, Sandy? You didn't just betray me. You disrespected everything we built together. You lied to my face over and over again. Even now you're sitting here trying to downplay it like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was deliberate, calculated, and it's unforgivable. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Ryan, I'll do anything. I'll delete his number. I'll go to therapy. Please, just don't leave me. I stood up, my voice steady but final. You didn't give me a choice, Sandy. When you chose to lie, to meet him, to kiss him, you ended our marriage. I'll be contacting a lawyer tomorrow. I hope Billy was worth it. Her sobs followed me as I left the room, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. Whatever love I had for her was gone, buried under the weight of her betrayal, and for the first time in years I felt like I was finally standing up for myself. The days after our confrontation were eerily quiet. Sandy tried to apologize at first. Messages, calls, even tearful pleas when I was home. But her words felt empty, like echoes in a room I no longer occupied. The trust, the foundation we had built over 6 years, was gone, and without trust there was nothing left to hold on to. I wasn't angry anymore. I was numb. I contacted a lawyer the next day, Mark Wilson, a no-nonsense guy who had helped me draft a prenuptial agreement before our wedding. I didn't expect to need his services so soon, but life has a way of flipping everything upside down when you least expect it. We went over the details, dividing assets, sorting out logistics. Sandy didn't fight the divorce. She knew there was no saving us. At home, she avoided me. The vibrant woman who used to light up every room now moved through the house like a ghost. She would try to talk sometimes, but what was there left to say? Every word felt like it came too late, like an attempt to patch a ship that had already sunk, and honestly, I was done trying to salvage it. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. We sold the house, split the proceeds, and said our goodbyes. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no grand speeches, just two people standing in the ashes of what used to be their life together. I wished her well, and I meant it, but as I walked away, I didn't look back. There was no point. For a while, I tried to move on. I went on dates, met new people, even had a few casual relationships, but something inside me had changed. The idea of marriage, of trusting someone so completely, felt foreign now. Twice I had given my heart to someone, and twice it had been shattered. I wasn't sure I could risk a third time. As for Sandy, I heard bits and pieces about her through mutual friends and her sister Deb. Apparently, she tried to rekindle things with Billy after our divorce. At first, it seemed to work. But when she got pregnant, he bailed. He told her he wasn't ready for kids and disappeared without a trace. That news hit me harder than I expected, not because I felt sorry for her, but because it confirmed everything I already knew about him. He was the same selfish man who had broken her heart before, and she had thrown away our marriage for him. It didn't end there. A few months later, Sandy suffered another blow. She lost the baby after a tragic fall down the stairs in her apartment. When I heard about it, I felt a pang of sadness. Not for her, not exactly, but for the life she had lost, the life we could have had if things had been different. Her sister told me she was a shadow of her former self, drowning in regret and depression. She couldn't forgive herself for what she had done to us, to herself. But as much as I wanted to feel sorry for her, I couldn't. Sandy made her choices, and those choices had consequences. She let her vanity and insecurity drive her into the arms of a man who didn't value her, and in the process she destroyed the one person who did. I wasn't bitter anymore. I was just done. What I learned through all of this is simple: trust, loyalty, and respect aren't just words. They're the foundation of any relationship. When one crumbles, the others follow. Sandy didn't just betray me, she betrayed those values. And once that line is crossed, there's no going back. These days, I focus on myself. I work, I travel. I spend time with friends who truly care about me. Marriage is no longer something I aspire to. Maybe someday I'll meet someone who changes that, but for now, I'm content. I've learned to guard my heart, to be cautious with the love I give. It's not bitterness, it's self-preservation. Sandy's story is hers to live, just as mine is mine. I don't hate her. In fact, I hope she finds peace someday. But our chapter is closed, and I've finally made peace with that. Life goes on, even when the people you thought would stand beside you don't. And in the end, I'd rather walk alone than with someone who doesn't value the journey.